Today we are going to take Carbo Veg, vegetable charcoal. In the crude form, Carbo Veg is inert substance and it is made medicinal and powerful by dividing it and by potentizing it. Carbo Veg is deep acting and it affects the vascular system, that is the venous side of the economy, heart and the whole venous system. Sluggishness is a good term when examining the pathogenesis of Carbo Veg. Sluggishness, laziness, and turgescence. Turgescence means a swelling arises by accumulation of blood or other fluids. Everything about the economy is sluggish, lazy, full, distended, puffed, and swollen. Hands are swollen, veins are swollen, feet are swollen and full, head feels full, limbs feel full. So the patient wants to put up his feet to let the blood run out. Veins are lazy, relaxed, and paralyzed. Varicose veins, vasomotor paralysis. And the mind of the Carbo Veg is same as the physical state. Slow to think, sluggish, limbs are clumsy, skin is dusky, and capillary circulation is engorged. Skin is purple and dusky. Carbo Veg has burning and coldness, burning in veins, burning stomach, burning head, burning skin with itching, burning in internal parts with external coldness, burning in inflamed parts, and coldness with feeble circulation and feeble heart, coldness of nose, ears, hands, feet, knees, icy coldness of parts, collapse with cold breath, cold sweat, and in all these conditions, he always want to be fanned. Bleeding runs throughout the remedy. There is oozing of blood from inflamed parts, inflamed ulcers, bleeding from lungs, uterus, bladder, or any other part of the body. Vomiting of blood, passive hemorrhages on account of feeble circulation, and oozing will start and continue. It hardly has active bleeding like aconite, belladonna, ipecac, and sickle core. In Carbo Veg, woman suffers from little oozing all the time, and so that it prolongs the menstrual period. Oozing of blood after confinement, and it ought to be stopped immediately by contractions. There are no contractions of blood vessels, they are relaxed. Black venous oozing after surgical operations, injuries, and inflamed part continues. So, in ulceration, there is no repair, no tissue making, and if an ulcer is once established, it will not heal. Hence, we have indolent ulcers, bloody, ichorous, acrid, thin discharging ulcers, skin, mucous membrane, throat ulcerate, ulcerations everywhere. Because of the relaxed and feeble conditions and poor tissue making, and there is stagnation of blood in capillaries. And how easy it would be for these parts, these feeble parts, to develop a gangrene. Any little inflammation or congestion become black or purple and slough easily. That is all necessary to make a gangrene. Carbo Veg is extraordinarily useful in some cases of varicose veins. In Carbo Veg, there are areas of black patches caused by stagnation of venules and capillaries. Thuja has also something of this kind. Blackishness vanishes and ulcers heal. It is wonderful remedy in septic conditions, blood poisoning, scarlet fever, after surgical operations and after shock, or in any disease that takes the sluggish form with purple and dusky appearance. In Carbo Veg, Indifference is very prominent. Inability to perceive or feel the impressions of surrounding circumstances. Hears everything, but without impressions, without feeling or thinking. He doesn't know whether he loves his wife or child or not. This is the part of sluggishness. There is another kind of state. He has anxieties, fears, especially in the evening and on closing eyes. He is frightened easily. Headache is mostly occipital, and headache comes from taking cold or slacking up of the old guttural discharges. Patients suffering from old guttural conditions, if they are exposed to cold, their discharges are slacked up, he will have congestion of head. He cannot stand the suppression of discharges. Headache comes on from cold, damp weather. Awful headache, especially occipital. Headache over eyes, pounding like hammers. It's like Kalibai, Kali Eye, and Sepia, and many others. Many of the headaches are due to suppression of guttural discharges. Headache worse from pressure of head. And eye symptoms are also associated with headache. Carbo Veg is one of the medicine for ears. Pain in ears, loss of hearing, ulceration in middle ear, excoriating, offensive, thin watery discharges from the ear, and those that dated back to typhoid, malaria, measles, or scarlet fever. Whenever the patient or the mother says that child has never been well since he has suffered from typhoid, malarial fevers, or measles or scarlet fever, then Carbo Veg is to be thought of. When old ear discharges, headaches, and symptoms are suppressed, Carbo Veg sets the reaction and establishes circulation and bring the old suppressed discharges and partially cure the patient. And after that, we can select some other more similar remedy. In inflammation of parotid glands or mumps, when mumps change their localities. In girls, they change to mammary glands, and in boys to testes after being chilled. Carbo Veg always suffers from coryza. It commences in nose with much sneezing, watery discharge day and night, and then it extends to throat, causing rawness, dryness, and the watery discharge fills the post nares and throat. Then in the evening, he has hoarse voice with rawness in larynx and throat. He has rawness aggravated by coughing, and touch aggravates soreness. Then this condition extends to chest, and secretions of thin mucus changes to thick yellow, green, and bad tasting discharges. He can find no comfortable place because he suffers from both heat and cold. He is chilled easily, and he suffers from warm room, and he sweats in warm room. Thus he suffers from both. Such is a coryza of Carbo Veg. Stomach disturbances are always associated with Carbo Veg complaints. Belching, disordered stomach, flatulence, distension of abdomen, and every time he disorders his stomach, he is likely to get coryza. Guttural conditions of all mucous membrane with thin mucus and bleeding. It is quite common for Carbo Veg patient to be feverish, but he is feverish in the earlier stages of coryza with coldness of the body and limbs. But once he enters the second stage, discharges become more copious and he become more cold. Coldness of feet, nose, body, and knees and with cold sweat. The face and expressions of the patient tells how sickly he is. There is great pallor, coldness, lips pinched, puckered, blue, cold, and there is cold sweat, cold breath, tongue is also cold, yet he wants to be fanned. This is true of all the complaints of Carbo Veg, whether he is suffering from cholera, diarrhea, exhaustive sweats, or complaints after diseases, or complaints after fever. Sometimes coryza has run its course and ended in chest, and there is great dyspnea, copious expectoration, exhaustive sweats, and coldness. Yet, patient wants to be fanned. Cough is followed by dyspnea with rawness, choking, and cold sweats, and yet the patient wants to be fanned. Complaints of larynx begins with cold in nose. There is weakness, hoarseness in larynx when talking. Tired feeling in larynx in speakers and singers. Hoarseness and loss of voice is more prominent in the evening time, but in more serious cases, it is also aggravated in the morning time. Soreness, rawness in larynx when coughing. And he has lot of mucus in larynx which he has to throw it out. He goes from bad to worse and lack of repair goes on till tuberculosis begins. Carbo Veg is a greatest remedy in the beginning of whooping cough. Its cuffs has all gauging, vomiting and redness that is found in whooping cough. A dose of Carbo Veg improves the matters very much, and in minor cases it cures in few days. So Carbo Veg is one to begin whooping cough with. He sleeps into paroxysms of coughing like lachesis. He rouses up from sleep with coughing, sweating, gagging, and he will sleep for 2-3 hours without any paroxysm, but after 2-3 hours he gets the paroxysm that lasts for 1 hour. Carbo Veg patient suffers much from difficulties of breathing, suffocation, cannot lie down, great weakness, and as if he could not get another breath. Sometimes it is due to the cardiac weakness, but most commonly it is due to the stuffing of chest. Carbo Veg cures asthma, and you will see a patient propped up in chair by an open window, or some of the member of his family is fanning him as fast as possible. Put your hand before his mouth and you will notice breath is cold and putrid, extremities are cold, his body is cold. Carbo Veg has rattling cough with retching and vomiting. At times it has dry hacking cough with rattling in chest, and as if he will suffocate with cough. Prolonged coughing is followed by purulent copious expectoration. And in advanced cases of tuberculosis, when the cases are incurable, Carbo Veg furnish an excellent palliative, and it strengthens the muscles of chest so that patient can expectorate better. It mitigates cough and dyspnea is relieved. Old cases of asthma. Every time there is warm, wet weather, asthma comes on. There is whistling, and whistling is increased by getting cold. He wakes up at night with suffocation and springs out of bed, and he goes to the window, or he wants to be fanned. Carbo Veg is required in old, badly treated pneumonia with remaining bronchitis, weakness of chest when coughing, and pneumonia of third stage with fetid expectoration and cold breath and cold sweat and wants to be fanned. There is burning in the sides of chest and back of sternum. Aggravation after coughing and the face of the Carbo Veg patient flushes after a little wine. This is a strong characteristic of Carbo Veg.